Hello and welcome to Get Involved Referee in what's the second special podcast this week with another special guest joining us in the studio. Welcome to Simon Donnelly, and Des Roache is with us tonight. Simon, thanks very much for coming along and taking part.
You're welcome. Glad to be here. Look forward to the game at the weekend.
Well, exactly. I mean, it's nothing quite like it, and the build-up to a derby weekend, is it? It's you can feel it in the air, and no doubt you did as a player. The atmosphere is different in the dressing room and the training ground, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you're a player now, you just want kick-off time. You know, you want the teams first and foremost to be in the team, but you just want the game now. You know, this lead up to it and last minute requests for tickets and all the hype that goes with it. I've seen Michael Beale and Ange at the press conference earlier as well. So as you say, it will be heating up, but the players will just want to get out there and start playing. It
looked like they were happy to be there in that picture,
just
Simon.
Staring into space. There wasn't much discussion at all, but yeah, I think they just have to do it. It's one of these things, have to tick off the press conference, but yeah, they'll be looking forward to the game as well at the weekend.
And we just, obviously from our perspective, Des, it's going to be a massive weekend for the officials. Nick Walsh has got the game, and he's only done 2 derbies before, one of which was in the COVID years, as it were, or the COVID season. So a big test for his character.
Yeah, I think it's a big test for his character, but also, and I'm delighted to see it, that it's a massive vote of confidence from the SFA. They've obviously Nick's done a semi-final. Very unusual if you do the semi-final that you get appointed to the final as well. Mm-hmm. But as I say, I think it's a show of his standing that they believe he's currently our number one referee, in which I would agree. So yeah, it'll be a lot of pressure on him. But we've seen the game that he'd done earlier in the year. He handled it well, and there was very, very little feedback and talkback from it.
And even in the second match between the two sides earlier in the season, back in January, Simon, there weren't that many contentious decisions, apart from the corner goals and handball late on in the game, which seems to divide opinion.
Yeah, and you're really hoping, from a football point of view, you're hoping that that's the case on Sunday. You know, that the football is what we're talking about and not any kind of VAR decisions. Having said that, it's inevitable, isn't it? I've covered enough Celtic games this season. You know, VAR is here, it seems to be here to stay. And, you know, it has changed the way football's regarded. I just watched a championship game down south last night. There was a couple of goals that would have been ruled off with VAR. Mm-hmm. You know, it was marginal stuff, but if it went to the line, it'd have been ruled off. But it was actually more enjoyable to watch it last night. There was no pause after, you know, because when I've got used to watching games with VAR now, you have to wait. You just have to wait to see what the decision is and if the goal will stand.
I understand you've got a little bit of an insight into the operational side of it, you know, in terms of the centre where the VAR guys are based. You could maybe explain a little bit why there is a delay, do you think?
I think maybe just with the actual technicalities of using the stuff in there, I think that's what's the hold up. And it isn't ideal because, as I say, more often than not that I do the Celtic games, you've got 60,000 fans sitting there, you know, and they're looking at a screen and waiting on a decision. Mm-hmm. And we're in a studio at the back of the goal, and you've got that whole stand looking back at you for, you know, to feedback. And it's frustrating. It is frustrating. It's something that we're going to have to try and come to terms with and get used to as we go. But I would like to think the process would be a wee bit quicker, you know, as we get better at it.
You'd warned about this, Des, at the start of the season when, you know, it was announced that they were going to bring in VAR halfway through the campaign, or not even halfway through, when everybody clearly wasn't particularly ready to embrace it.
I think we've said all along, if you're going to bring in new technology, it has to be ready to go, and it has to be ready 100% correct. Now, we were under the impression that it was going to come in originally after the World Cup, so that was maybe about August to December, 4 or 5 months later, and then all of a sudden it arrives at the start of October. And again, we've said if this technology has been available and the guys have been test running it, working on it, drawing the lines in the sand, and says trying to get there quicker, that's the ideal outcome for everybody. And the fact that we're still not quite there doesn't change my mind that it shouldn't have come in at all this year. I think it was pushed upon us because the technology's there. I think Mr. Maxwell's quote was, it's like a new signing. Why wouldn't you play him from the start? Well, you make sure he's match fit first if you're bringing in a new signing. I would much rather have seen it run in the background, make all these errors out with the sight of the public. And I know the SFA have said they have done that, but clearly there's still a wee glitch in there. I think I'd have been far more comfortable coming in end of the year. Guys are completely familiar with it. They know how it runs. They know what to expect, and it's up and running. And we're getting these decisions after 30 seconds, a minute at the tops, but sitting waiting for 3, 4, 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's frustrating. I mean, I've got the advantage of watching the screen back when I'm covering the Celtic games. And most of the decisions, you can more or less get them in 5-10 seconds. Now, I'm not an expert. I don't know exactly what goes on in the VAR studio, but that's a bit of a frustration as well, because you're watching it and you're been a couple of the Kyogo ones recently where you can tell Kyogo plays on he plays on the shoulder.
Yeah.
It's difficult for a linesman, I would imagine, because he's so quick. But when you've watched it back, 5-10 seconds, you can tell, you know, and it's. Look, Des, you might be able to correct. I think sometimes when they get that bit and they think, right, he's onside, they then go back in the phase of play to see if there's any other discrepancy, and that just extends it even longer. And it's, as I say, it's very frustrating.
Yeah, when a goal's scored, they go back to when that attacking move started, the attacking player pathway. But like what Simon just said there, if you see something and you're having to look at it, you should be able to get that decision within the first 10 seconds, 15 seconds, say, have a look at it, move it back and forward, adjust yourself, right, fine, okay, I'm happy to go with it, get the information forward. See if you're having to look at something 5, 6 times, then it's not clear and obvious. And at that moment in time, I think you've got to then revert back to the match day referee. The VAR is there to clear up the clear and obvious errors, and if you're having to look at things 5, 6 different times, then that's not clear and obvious.
So do you feel, Simon, that they should have waited until the start of next season and just tried to get everybody trained up, efficient, sharp on the ball?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you can't use the Scottish Premier League or top league almost as like a guinea pig, you know, for teething problems. I mean, I watched the first game through at Tynecastle with Hearts and Celtic, and you're hoping it goes without anything, and there couldn't have been any more VAR situations in that game. And, you know, they have teething problems, but Des says, do not do it in the background and get these teething problems where it doesn't affect games, and then be ready to go at the start of what would have been next season.
Then, of course, you'd have the argument that some of the decisions that have gone right wouldn't have been.
I know, but we kind of lived with that before. As I said, that championship game last night, yes, there was 2 goals there but the game was 3-2, and there's a spectacle for supporters. West Brom won't say that because they get beat 3-2, but for the neutral or the football's about scoring goals, and I just think VAR now. We could get into a different discussion about the offside rule, but it's just about taking goals away, really, and it's. As I say, that game last night was like old school. It was, you know, okay, there's a couple of things there, but it's almost accepted before.
Football's, again, something that I've said and Steve said and we've all agreed. Football's a game of skill and error. The best football players will create the best chances, score the best goals because their skill level is higher than the opposition. The referee gets there for the exact same because his skill of making a judgment and making a decision is better than his colleagues. So that's almost been taken away, and if it's going to be used, yes, use it right and get it done. I also think that another reason it might have been brought in earlier is because of the current standard of the referees that we have in Scotland, where you've got to be using it in your domestic league to even be considered for Champions League matches and UEFA matches, and they don't want to lose their coefficient of the amount of referees that they have at FIFA level and UEFA level. So again, I think that's another reason that the SFA would be considering to say, well, we need to keep this cohort in here, so let's get it in.
Was that the one that bugged you the most, the Michael Smith handball incident in that Hearts game? But there have been a few involving Celtic this year.
Yeah, well, I thought that was a straightforward penalty, but people will tell me no. That there has been 1 or 2. As I say, I do Celtic TV, so I'm covering most of the Celtic games. The Bernabeu one and Matt O'Reilly.
Yeah.
For me, these aren't penalties. They just aren't. And then I've seen things recently down in the English Premiership where the boys went, I think they were arguing about one last night on TV about if he's fallen, but then it's interpretation, is he actually fallen, because he went to get down and didn't get down and it hit his hand. So see, answer, I really don't know what a handball is now in the box. I watched Partick get one last week. I thought it was very harsh on Rangers. I watched Celtic get one against Morton in the Scottish Cup. I don't think anybody in the stadium could see it apart from the guy in the VAR. So it's brought an uncertainty to the game. I watch games now differently. As I say, when a goal goes in now, I'm reluctant to, you know, accept that it's a goal until VAR's went through all the process. And, you know, there's incidents in the box where I genuinely, we're how many months into the season, there doesn't seem to be a consistency with the decision. So you're looking at something that could be given. The next game, it's totally opposite.
I know.
That's what VAR's caused. It's caused uncertainty.
Yeah.
And I think particularly for referees as well. I mean, I heard an interview with the ex-head of refereeing, Hugh Dallas, just last week, and he was talking about how Law 12 handball, or Phil's got the handball, is the most difficult to apply. Well, no, it's not really. And you're in a position within UEFA and the SFA are in a position that they can make amendments to these laws. If the ball hits you, then and there's nothing you can do to get out the road of it, then that shouldn't be getting called into question. That's just play on. I agree. I think the Cholak one against Partick Thistle, never a penalty kick. Matt O'Reilly, never a penalty kick.
Yep.
Bernabei, never a penalty kick. But when you're going to put your hand up and you're deliberately trying to stop
The one with the lad for St Mirren last week against Celtic, I think that's a penalty kick because it's going in the net.
Yes.
Yeah,
But is it a red
but the
card?
sanction for so it's
You
a
know what I
double
mean?
jeopardy there.
It's harsh, I think, on the defender.
How many times did we see? I think there was one in the World Cup. We've mentioned it a few times. When say Portugal and Uruguay, maybe.
Yep.
Where Fernandes has gone into the penalty area. The defenders came to tackle him. He's went to slide tackle, so he's got to balance, put his hand down, and all the players are almost shouting for the penalty kick before the ball's even struck the player. So it can become as a tactic. Well, do you know what? I'm just going to hit it off you and I'll take a chance here. I'm singing from the same sheet all the time. I'm saying a handball should be deliberate or unintentional, and that's it.
I suppose one of the more contentious aspects in recent couple of weeks was the Malik Tillman situation in the Rangers Partick Thistle game, where all's well that ends well, because Michael Beale ordered Rangers to allow Scott Tiffany to score, although Alan McGregor wasn't having much of it for a wee while.
I think he was thinking twice, wasn't he? Wasn't he?
Maybe more than twice.
And that provoked a wee bit of social media attention to yourself, Simon, from that.
Very unwanted and surprised.
From that Wraith Rovers Cup tie back in 1995.
Yeah, some folk have got long memories. Certainly, it went out of my memory. But yeah, it was one that been brought to my attention, not quite like the Tillman circumstances, but it was contentious. And I don't think Wraith Rovers were too happy. Jimmy Nicholl, the manager at the time, been very happy with it. But I had to actually be reminded of the incident in a League Cup game where I think, looking back as a young player, I'd have just been happy to get on the score sheet. But I think there'd been a throw-in that had been returned further down into the Wraith territory, which they weren't too happy about, and then have capitalised on their mistake. But yeah, it was one of these ones that, as I say, it wasn't as straightforward as last week. And here was me saying about how sportsmanlike Michael Beale had been, only to be dug up myself.
Nothing like the west of Scotland, Simon, to keep the rivalry going.
No, they must have long memories up in Fife.
I know. But yeah, as I say, I'd have the memory jogged myself. But these are situations. I think last week he did the right thing. I know it's been brought up. My dad said the same thing. Would he do it in a Rangers Celtic game?
Yeah.
And I think the sportsman thing is the right thing to do. But having said that, as you say, the west of Scotland and Glasgow, if Partick had scored and won the game last week,
I know,
he would have got dogs abuse.
Oh yeah, he
would have. So it's a fine line, but I think he did the right thing.
I was talking about that. I mean, some Rangers fans lifted a banner up at the Livingston game, which I thought was quite unusual, especially the timing of it.
Yeah, but listen, he backed his team on the day to go and win the game, and I think it was the right thing to do. There'd obviously been a misunderstanding at the time. I was watching it with my son, and I had been distracted. When I'd lifted my head back up, I thought Tillman had genuinely went to press down, as you do. And then obviously I seen the reaction of the Partick players, and then we watched it back. So I think Michael Beale did the right thing.
I suppose, like Simon says, you perish thought it would ever happen in an old
Sunday.
If that
imagine.
If that happens on Sunday, all I can say is I hope Nick's got his car engine running before the 90 minutes out. Would we see it in an Old Firm game? I would like to think we would, but it would be highly controversial. And then what's the worst thing in that situation? The referee can't influence what takes part there. Is it like a drop ball?
Rule.
There is no rule. If the instruction comes from the side, and as we said, Alan McGregor maybe did a couple of things about kicking wee tiff. See if Alan McGregor didn't allow that ball to go in, again, there's nothing the referee can do.
Yeah.
He's going to have a bit of a hairy next 10 minutes on his hands, and I think his cards might be.
I think Nick Walsh has got enough on his plate without anything like that happening at the weekend.
Absolutely, I think his cards would be going like a revolving door.
I think there'll be enough communication going on in the game. Do you not think, to make sure?
I think you'd find a way to stop that play for some reason. There's a feather on the ball.
You talk about contentious decisions, and even with VAR we're getting them, Simon, but what were the worst ones that you were involved in as a player then? I mean, looking back, some big ones went against you, I'm sure, and I guess the one that many Celtic players and fans would remember is the George Cadetti incident at Ibrox.
Yeah, that would be the obvious one for me as well. I think, was that the 3-each game?
It finished 3-1 Rangers.
3-1, getting mixed up with the Van Hooijdonk game.
Aye.
No, I think that would be the obvious one, because, you know, the way the momentum went, the way the defender was coming out, it's not even a close one, really. And again, I'm going against what I'm probably saying about the Championship game last night and the advantages of the opposition, but that's the one that went against us. I remember a Stefan Mahe, what I would regard a stonewall penalty as well, that we never got, and that was at Ibrox as well. So yeah, a couple of decisions that didn't go our way. Unfortunately, we didn't have VAR back then, but as I say, I'm complaining about it nowadays, so I don't really know what the answer is.
I don't know if you can recall your emotions at the time, but I mean, like you say, it was a big moment in the season, that game. If Cadetti scores, it's 2-2. There are only 7 minutes to go. You're probably looking at getting a nice precious point there away from home, and you go back feeling good about yourself. And the other way around, it flips. Eric Bo Anderson scores at the other end, and the next minute you're chasing your tail again. And
effectively kills you as well. So it's never nice when things like that go against you. And I think that year we were given a decent account of ourselves in the league. We had brought in guys like Cadetti that definitely enhanced us. But yeah, when decisions go against you like that, I'm thinking another one, but not necessarily in my time, with John Hartson. I think it was summer. I think
2003 League Cup final.
I've heard John complain about it.
Just a few times.
The one goal that got away. But yeah, these are things that happen, and it's no nice when it goes against you.
It's I just looked at some of the grainy footage of that game, Des, that we're talking about, and my God, the challenges were fantastic.
That's when football was for real men, as people say, or they keep telling us it was always the good old days. Just like what Simon's saying there's decisions that went against Celtic at that time, and for other teams, because VAR technology wasn't. Now we're complaining that it is there, and it's taking the enjoyment away from it. I think because it's a worldwide thing now, and it's getting used in every country and every major decision, we've just got to live with it. It's here. I
think the thing as well, Des, the thing that gets me in it's more about the rules. So the Cadetti one with VAR would have been pretty obvious.
That was more than obvious, yeah.
Right, so there was one at the weekend where Hatate finds Jota in the box. It's a great pass, threads it through, splits the Aberdeen defence. Jota kind of miscontrols it, but it ends up with Maeda potentially winning a penalty. But VAR take it back and Jota's offside. Nobody has a problem with that. It's well offside. And it's obvious. It's the ones where it's the toe or the shoulder and there's lines being drawn, and as you say, they're looking at it for 3-4 minutes. They're the ones that are getting on everybody's nerves. They're the ones that frustrate the life out of you. It's as if they're doing everything in their power to take the goal away. If it's as obvious as that, then I think everybody agrees with it. Everybody goes, right, he's offside there. Even the Celtic fans at the weekend, he's offside, play on. But it's these ones that they pull it back, and they're taking away some really good goals as well, but it's for minuscule stuff, and they'll say, well, letter of the law. So maybe that's where the rule has to be changed.
I agree. To me, that's not, as you say, it's not clear and obvious. If it's somebody's a yard offside in the build up to it, and you can see it with the naked eye, or you can see it on a still straight away, every right-minded footballer, referee, journalist, fan in the crowd would go, yep, fair enough.
Can't really argue it, yeah.
If it's coming down to somebody's big toes off, and we have seen it, and it really literally is, their toe is on the cut of the grass, and you can see it from that. Is that what football is? Is that what we're coming to?
Yeah.
I feel extremely sorry for the players and the fans when the ball's getting stopped and goals are getting cut off. To me, that's not what VAR's there for. VAR's there to get penalties, major decisions, goals, things that make football what it is, and people have an opinion. But when it's coming down that you're having to get a ruler to draw a line to say, yeah, well, his big toe is off, or he's on that different cut of grass.
And again, you watch that going in, you're like, how can they be 100,
yeah.
How can you be 100% there? You know, it's
It comes down to where the camera angle is.
yeah.
And we've seen it earlier in the year at Motherwell, where the camera was
I've panned it
further down other part of the stand.
But just to take their word.
And we've just to take their word. Now, FIFA will always, and the Scottish FA will always hide behind the letter of the law. And if the letter of the law is there, then they are correct. They've got no question to answer. But it's just so I don't know. It's very annoying. It's the first thing I get asked when I go into work. People saying, "Did you see that decision?" It's no more about say, "Oh, did you see that goal Simon Donnelly scored at the weekend?" Or "Did you see what about them getting beat by this?"
It's made us watch football in a different way. And,
cynical.
And react to it. And as I say, players as well, I think, must get frustrated. I mean, players will go away and celebrate a goal and then it's pulled back for something, you know, further back in the phase. And as it's taking that kind of spontaneity.
Does it take that enjoyment of, you've just went and scored? So take this weekend, say Cholak scores for Rangers or whoever Mida scores for Celtic, and they know it's tight, but they have to hold back the celebration because they're waiting to see, and then they've got a delayed reaction for a celebration. That's taken away that person's moment of glory and a huge part of their life.
Let's just hope that VAR works this time, that it didn't break down like it did.
I know, that's right.
Yeah, we were told though that there was always a generator that was ready to go, and this problem shouldn't happen. But hey, we're in Scotland.
That wasn't ideal, was it? When they announced it over Hampden that it was away, and then they announced that it was back.
In fact, was there not an incident in the middle of it as well?
That was when the Ryan Kent kind of punch, or whatever you want to call it, forearm smash or something.
I hope there's none of
I
that.
hope they've paid their meter. And then they've got a stack of pound coins sitting to the side.
Oh, exactly. And listen, I understand a bit of history between you two anyway, in terms of your behaviour on the sidelines when you were in Partick Thistle. Is that correct, Des?
I didn't. No, Simon wasn't the worst. None of the guys were. That's probably not. No. They were always very supportive of their team, and there's a couple of occasions they can have a wee shout and bang forward, but it was always cordial. I was quite happy to look after myself. But no, in general, I think that one of your colleagues was maybe a wee bit more.
Who could that be?
a wee bit more vociferous. In fact, I remember one up at, I think it was one at Tannadice and one at St Johnstone, when your co-coach, not Mr. McNamara, was maybe a wee bit. Maybe Mr. Jackson was just a bit more animated. But again, he would come in afterwards and you would have a laugh and you'd be fine with it. But he did take some talking to sometimes.
You must have got some stick as a fourth official in these days, did you, Des?
It's the worst job in the world.
I was just about to say, I think you guys get all the frustration vented towards you now because of the guy that's between the dugouts.
I used to, my standard reply was, say it was Steve or it was Willie Cup, whoever the referee may have been, or if I was the referee and I'm quite happy to be 40 yards away, I'd be passing it to my fourth official. But I used to say to the management team, saying, so Simon come up to me and said, why is Steve not giving that decision, or what's happened here? I'm like, I'm telling him advice. I said, it's like you telling Jackie. Jackie can take your advice or tell you to fling it away. It's entirely up to the guy in the middle. He's the boss. Jackie's your boss. So it's an assistant manager and a fourth official are very similar. But when you're standing in the middle and you've got one dugout on one side and another on the other, you're just like, no, come on, he's a break with wee boys.
That's a sort of strange dynamic of Hampden, though, isn't it, Simon? Because
that's the best place.
Technical areas are so far away.
So far away, aye.
It makes it kind of strange, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just a strange setup at Hampden. I remember going there with Dundee United, funnily enough, a couple of times, and when you're going out there to try and get a message across, you feel as if you're on your own. I think the managers must feel that a lot of the time if they're out there. You know, it's such a big technical area, and even if you were, as I say, me as the number two wanting to go out and say something to Jackie or whatever, it's almost half a mile to try and catch him. But no, it's a different setup. I don't know where you guys are at Hampden.
So we're obviously in the middle. The guys tend to stand forward just towards the edge of the grass. So you can still talk to both the managers either side of you, and you're aware there's obviously guys behind you.
So the proximity is not quite the same.
No, it's not quite as intense.
Most other stadiums where.
Not quite Capello, is it? No.
It's not Capello. Dundee and Tannadice was okay because their bench, the two dugouts almost ran through one another. Kilmarnock was the same. The tight ones, Morton was always tight, Hearts was always tight. But I think it's Kevin Clancy's fourth official of the weekend. So not that you're going to see a Rangers Celtic game's going to be easier, but it might be easier on the sidelines for Kevin than most games.
No, exactly. What's going through their minds then? What's the preparation for the guys going to the game on Sunday? Do they all meet up in a hotel, don't they, and get their instructions?
So the week will just be the exact same as for a player. They'll be doing their due diligence, looking at the previous games. That between both clubs we've only had a couple, but they'll check the games that have been going on this year. They'll be looking at the way the teams have played the last couple of weeks? Is there any injuries? Is there any suspensions? What's potentially a likely starting lineup? Yep. Do your research on free kicks and corner kicks. Is there, who are the ones that come up? Who are the ones that maybe potentially jostling and pulling, etc.? Who are you expecting to maybe be the hotheads on the? So they'll just be doing the exact same tactical analysis that a player would do. Again, they'll be training through the week, training most days, if not every day. I know certainly if it was a Saturday game, I prefer to take the Thursday as my rest day and train on a Friday, because I didn't like turning up on a Saturday having been stiff for a day and not done anything. I like to go through a wee motion there. So yeah, they'll be training. They will meet up on Sunday morning. It'll be a hotel. They'll go in, they'll get some breakfast, or they may actually, because there's the underground car parking at Hampden, they may actually go direct there
to Hampden.
They may go there themselves and get some food, which is probably more likely. But they'll have something light, and then they'll be down in the dressing room, I would imagine 90 minutes before kick-off. But Nick will be thinking about it all week. He'll be thinking about it all week, and I'm sure that he'll go and hopefully have a positive game.
That's it. It never dawned on me that they would actually look at who was playing, Simon, and work out which players to keep an eye on.
Listen, I think if they're doing their jobs, they have to know that, and they have to know potential problems to look for in the game, different styles of play and stuff. So I'm not surprised that they get out through. I don't envy them, to be honest. I really don't. I used to referee games in training, and you got it from every angle. So in all seriousness, I do not envy the job of a referee as much as I've gave them stick over the years. Yeah,
I know one thing that certainly I used to do. I used to try and pick out a couple of the players that you knew and you knew you could talk to, and go run by, say, Simon, you see that easy, and go, Simon, tell Jackie, stand up, don't dive in, or tell him he's got one more left. So by the time you actually go and talk to him, or you're going to take action, you've tried to manage that situation before you even get there. I think that helps. I was speaking about this last week as well. I think communication between players and referees, it does. One of the problems I always get irritated, not so much, probably can't remember back when I was playing, but when I was coaching, all joking aside, when there was a kind of arrogance, or as if you couldn't speak to them, it just fuels the flames. It just makes people more angry, and then there's a confrontation. I think if there is communication like that, I think it helps every situation. You try and build that communication prior to so if a manager or coach comes in with the team sheets, or if I'm walking into the stadium or going to do your pitch inspection, I would always make the point of saying hello to them, shaking their hand, how you doing, had a good week, everything okay, just a bit of small talk. Same with players, just nod, how you doing, good to see you. Then you get the team sheet coming in again, because the last thing you want is a coach or a player getting back into their own dressing room saying, by the way, that referee, what do you see the attitude on him? So it's a people game. It's a relationship. You're going to more than likely see these guys 4 or 5 times a year. So it's a relationship building, and if that can help you manage the game later on under a certain situation, then all the better for you. What about players trying to not influence but encourage the referee, let's say, or remind him of certain things to look out for? Is that something that happened in your day? Did some of your teammates say, right, come on, you need to watch out for him, he's an assassin, he's going to kill us? No, I don't think so much. I think maybe just complaining during games, that you got players that were more vocal than others. I genuinely don't really remember myself being, there might be referees out there that remember me having a go at them at times, but I never had any kind of run-ins with certain referees. I do think back in my day there was more of a, you could go as a group. I remember even further back, Aberdeen always having to do it, but I think now you get pulled up for that sort of stuff. I think a couple of teams, was it Leeds and somebody last week, maybe Man United, get pulled up for it. So I think that's been taken away, I think correctly, kind of hounding the referee with certain decisions. But I think there probably was a wee bit more of that in my time with teams trying to influence, but that's been taken away, as is all the heavy tackles as you keep telling us about there. Exactly. The game's changed. I don't know when I go up to Nick Walsh on Sunday and say, "One, Nick, you need to watch out for him. He's going to be getting the elbows out." I wouldn't think so. There's that many cameras now as well. I know. You can't really get away with anything. You're talking about the Ryan Jack one there. I think everything's scrutinised now. There's that many cameras. No, exactly. I remember talking to the late Bertie Auld. He told me a fabulous story. There's a great referee called Tom Wharton, who you'll have heard of. His nickname was Tiny because he was about 9'6". He was sent down to cover a Birmingham City game because Bertie had gone to play for Birmingham for a while in the old Intercity Fairs Cup. And
Bertie goes up to Tom Wharton and says, well, Mr. Wharton, nice to see you. There'll be 2 Glasgow men in the pitch tonight. You'll be looking after me. Oh, nice to see you, Mr. Auld. Next minute, Bertie goes through somebody, knocks him about 6 feet in the air. Wharton calls him over and says, Mr. Auld, you said there were 2 people from Glasgow on the pitch tonight. Now there's only 1.
Off you go.
Off you go. So I suppose he was interacting with the players.
I've heard a few.
Tiny Wharton, aye.
I've heard a few stories with certain referees to certain comments along the lines of, you want this other team to win, you're a cheat, you're cheating. Words I've heard, well, I can certainly have far more influence on the game than any of your players.
Exactly. Well, listen, fingers crossed it all goes well for Nick Walsh and his merry men on Sunday. I presume you'll be there, Simon. You'll be involved. From a football point of view, how are you looking at it? If Celtic have their A game, are they too strong?
I think so. I do think so. I think they've got the stronger squad, the stronger starting 11. Having said that, the last game, capitalising on a mistake early on, the game turned on its head just after half time, and then Celtic had to get a late equaliser. So the cliche is form goes out the window, but I think if Celtic are at it, Celtic win. Just
the whole pressing game and the pace up front and the...
Yeah, and I just think their midfield's very strong. I think Hatate at the moment, I thought he was sensational at the weekend. Yeah. I think he's getting better. Came off the bench the week before, scored 2 goals. I think he's getting stronger all the time. The concern for me is Kyogo. Hopefully he'll be fully fit with the shoulder injury. They look solid at the back. I think Celtic are the stronger team. They have to turn up on the day, right enough.
Is there anyone in the Rangers side that worries you at all? Or Sakala has done quite well in the last couple of these games.
I think,
for example,
I think the blow will be Tillman. If Tillman isn't fit for them, I think he's been one of their better performers recently. Yeah, there's some new players coming in there, so I don't really know. I don't know Rangers' strongest 11. I still think Morelos is their strongest striker. Yeah, he's scored a couple of goals recently, but will he play? We don't know. But I do feel watching a lot of Celtic, I don't think they were at their best against St Mirren, but scored 5. They were ruthless towards the end, capitalised on the man getting sent off. I thought they were very good at the weekend. So if they're in top form, I see them winning.
And you brought it up there. Todd Cantwell and Nico Raskin could be playing, making their Old Firm debut, basically 3 or 4 games into their Rangers career. That's a sink or swim job, that one, isn't it?
It is, but I always look at that as a great opportunity. People were saying to me about coming in at Celtic, 21-year-old, and he started at the weekend. I thought he had a quiet game, and if Kyogo's fit, Kyogo starts. But what an opportunity if he gets the chance, to be a hero. It's the same for the Rangers players. I always look at the positive on that. 4 games in to their Rangers career, they could be playing in the final.
No, exactly. Very interesting times ahead. You and I will go through it all in great detail next week, Des. I trust it.
Yes, I'm sure we will.
With our good friend Stephen. Simon, thanks very much for joining us tonight. Good luck in the future, and we'll see you all next time on Get Involved Referee.